Aloha. Aloha. We really appreciate the hospitality and the opportunity to come into Kalapana and do our show here. We're going to do the community part. And so I'm Robert Patrici. I lived up there near this geothermal plant since the beginning when it first came. And I saw it from the beginning to now. So we're going to start with the history. This was the original state plant. They called it the HGPA. They drilled it in the late 70s and they turned it on in 1981. And this is what it looked like. And it's right next to Leilani Estates. And we're going to talk about what's in all these gases a little later. But they used to just let this go into the surrounding community for 7 years. This is what it was like. And they dumped this stuff on the ground in unlined ponds, and we're going to talk about what was in this. It's not just water. There's all kind of stuff in there, and it went down into the water table, and they did find it down at Green Lake. So I'm just going to show a few more pictures of what it was really like. And if you see the one on the bottom on the left, that white stuff, they just bulldoze them. They never clean them up, and when there was piled, they just left it just like that. They never did clean it up. They never did any testing, or we never got any analysis. Now they open this one back up again, and they still never test them. In fact, the state now is easing the rules. They're telling them, oh, it's too hard for geothermal, so we got to make it easier. So all our state elected representatives are doing away with all of the environmental assessments and EIS, all that stuff. They don't like doing them. They're just going to come in and do this without nothing. Nobody going to get a chance to say nothing. That's how they're trying to do it. And you can see the trees, the stuff wouldn't kill the trees up there in the top picture. Who wants to see it?
Maybe can harm you.
Oh, you can't see through me. Oh.
Because you're such a big guy, you know.
Is that better?
Well,
where you want me? So there's a few more pictures of, and this was a 2.5 megawatt. It varied between 2 and 3 megawatts. And look at all that Opala, and the one they got up there right now is 38 megawatts, 13 times the size of this. And they put in all that back down in the ground. And they also add chemicals. They won't tell us. They got what they call a Halliburton loophole, where it's all secret. So they put stuff in there to, keep the wells clean and all that, all kind of chemicals, but it's all secret. We're not allowed to know, and there's no testing that we can find out about on the water. These were just days when they just let this stuff go completely unabated. It was all the time, plenty. No abatement. Abatement is they kind of try to scrub some of it, but they only scrub the H2S really. They still let in all this other stuff go that you're going to see in a little bit while. So then came, they closed that one down and they opened up the big one that we got up there now is Ormat. And they used to put these signs up and they would just open vent these big wells now into the community all the time. They said that they're supposed to use best available control technology, which, what is the most modern stuff. And they said the best available control technology was to just let it go into the air. So Pele Defense Fund, the community really, this bond came from Pele Defense Fund and the community because of this, because the State Department of Health, they refused to make any rules or anything, and they just was going to let them do this. And so Pele Defense Fund came and they helped us get lawyers, and we sued them. And so that's how we got the air rules, and that's how we got BACT. So they wasn't telling the truth. They said that's BACT, but there wasn't, and they're still not telling the truth. They never did tell the truth. And this, you can see, if you can see on him, he's covered with this mud and the food. That's the stuff that used to come down. If you see behind Moani and Kaka there on the right side, there's a well open venting right behind her. And that's what they used to do. And then this kind of stuff would come down on all of our roofs and everything. We're all on catchment up there. And it would come down all over the place. And they did that plenty before. And then so Pele Defense came and they helped us and we sued them. And then now they don't do that anymore. in between 1991 and 1999, there was 18 civil defense declared emergencies at the Ormat plant, the plant that's there now. We don't know what happened between 1999 and now, but we did talk to civil defense last night, in fact, and he said there's been incidents. He doesn't know if they declared emergencies or not, but this one, Harry Kim was there, and he used to declare this emergency. So, you know, when they tell you it's clean, it's safe, you know, it's better now. I mean, they had 18, the civil defense declared 18 emergencies just in that 8 years. So it's not true what they're saying. This was, Lorraine Inouye was the mayor, and she declared an emergency when we all had to be evacuated one time when the well blew up. And I think it was 1991. And that's what it looks like when a well blows up. And then, like, this happens all over the world. It's not a rare thing. They say, you know, it's chances 1 in 1,000. That's not true. It happens all the time. In California, the geysers, the biggest geothermal development in the United States, they've had 4 well blowouts. And one was in 1957. They never could cap it. The thing is still going today. And they tried and tried. They've tried 4 or 5 times to cap it, and every time it gets worse. And one of the times they tried, the thing blew up, and they had a huge crater there. And so they piled boulders inside it, and now they just try to evade the thing. But they could never cap it. And we got to watch for that, because if that happens up here, over there in places, they get buffer zones and all that. This one, they put them right in the middle of the people. If the thing goes off like that, the people are going to have to leave, because if they cannot fix them, you cannot live there with this thing. So, according to the USGS, in Iceland, 1977, see, they say you cannot, they triggered an eruption is what happened, but they say it cannot happen. Like over here, they hit lava, they never tell anybody for 3 years. And there was drilling, and the mud and the water would cool the lava, came up the well 30 meters, but never come out the well because it was drilling. But in Iceland, the difference is when you're operating the plant and you get magma movement underground and you get the plants operating, not drilling, you're not putting cold water down, the lava came right up the well and started an eruption in Iceland. And so they say that cannot happen here, but I disagree. I think we get right on the East Rift Zone, I think we get magma movement underground. If it comes into one of the pockets that they're using, the lava is going to come up the well and it's going to erupt. It could anyway. So Aurora's going to take this part and she's going to do the safety. So I'll let her go.
Geothermal plants run on volcanic steam, and it's not steam like your teapot. It's not like that at all. It's more like a toxic soup. The non-condensable gases, so they bring up the steam and they run it through the power plant, and then they cool it off and they dump it back into the ground. But some of the things, they don't want to turn back into liquid. And they're gases, and they're released into the air 24 hours a day. They say they're not, but I've been up there, and I know they are. I can show it to you. This is what it has in it: benzene, hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, mercury vapor, methane, non-methane hydrocarbons, carbon dioxide, arsenic, vinyl chloride, beryllium, asbestos, radon, radionuclides. Now, this data came from when the blowout happened. We kept telling the government that they were having leaks and having problems. And they told us, the Department of Health told us, no, you're just smelling the papayas rotting in the field behind you. And then finally the well blew. We knew the well was going to blow 5 hours before. We could see steam. We could see the drilling mud boiling underneath that drill rig. And nobody did anything. After the well blew, the state hired geothermal experts. These are pro-geothermal people, came out to our community, came out and investigated geothermal, and they're the ones that told us this is what is inside geothermal, steam and brine. Same thing, benzene, ammonia, arsenic, lead, cadmium, bicarbonate and carbonates, sulfides, chlorides, nitrites, boron, hydrogen sulfide, fluorides, beryllium, radon, asbestos, radionuclides. I'm not a scientist, but I know these things aren't good for us. And I don't think it's fair, like when you go to the store, like you get to look at the ingredients and decide whether you want to buy it and eat it or drink it. But when people moved here, or people that already lived here, nobody told them this is what geothermal is going to give them. And I don't think that's fair. I think people need to have the right to know. And will this affect our water? Of course, like Bob showed you, this stuff is being dumped into the ground. It was dumped onto the ground during HGPA, and PGV dumps it into the ground, and they say it's clean, it's re-injected, and that we're drilling below the aquifer, so we're not affecting the groundwater. Well, an EPA report came out in 2000. Now, these reports are all that I'm talking about. They're all this thick. And unfortunately, we've had to read through them all. But the aquitard has been broken. EPA said that PGV's casing has been damaged, and this is going into our water. You know, sometimes it's pretty hot at the hot pond on high tide. Maybe it's reinjection. I don't know at this point what's going on. But this is going into our groundwater. And like Uncle said, we can live without electricity, but not water. This part's really kind of hard for me here. The health effects of air pollutants from geothermal development. Whoops. How do I go backwards?
To the left button.
Okay. We went through the chemicals, and this is just a little bit, and again, this is from the reports that the state hired independent people. Ammonia, it causes eye, nasal inhalation, and chest irritation. Increased morbidity, which I think means sickness, and mortality, which I think means death, and pulmonary edema. Hydrogen sulfide gas is heavier than air. So imagine something that's invisible but rolls on the ground like water. In our neighborhood, I live in Lani, Puna Gardens. We back right up to PGV, our property. The next road over, we had a man named Mr. Bud Breeze. He lived where it was the low part of the road. And he asked for relocation. Now understand, when PGV got their permit, they put in there that people could be relocated. They knew we were going to be impacted. This man pleaded for relocation. He was this elderly Christian man that didn't protest. He occupied the mayor's office and blasted loud music because the drilling was so loud. He wanted the mayor, Steve Yamashiro, to know what was going on, what it felt like. He got arrested. Before he could get relocated, he died of pulmonary edema. Pulmonary edema. PGV's already killed at least one person. Ammonia bisulfide penetrates the skin more rapidly than H2S. H2S is what smells like rotten egg, but it readily dissociates back to H2S. So we're absorbing things through our skin, not only breathing it, and when it gets into our skin, it adds more H2S to our body. Arsenic, corrosive to skin and mucous membranes, and it also causes cancer. After the blowout happened in '91, they capped the well. We came home. But we kept getting sick. My daughter, every morning at nighttime, the wind blows on us from the plant, and during the day it blows on Leilani Estates. Every morning my daughter would wake up, and around her nose and mouth, the skin had been eaten away. Now, we didn't know all of this at this time, but I knew something was wrong. And we had to leave the area for 6 months. The experts finally told the state that PGV had not killed the well. It was venting under the ground. It's all Swiss cheese rock under the ground. It's all porous, and it's coming up through the ground. And we can't even smell it. It's just vaporizing up through the ground. On November 8th of 2011, lightning struck PGV power plant at 10 o'clock in the morning. That power plant's almost 30 years old. Every time they have to, if the electricity stops, they have to close in the wells. When they close in the wells, there is 880,000 pounds of weight coming up, steam pressure, coming up from those wells, when they close it, it wants to go somewhere. I believe from what I've experienced since November is those wells, the casing is shot and it's going through the ground because we're experiencing the same thing again. And now that drill rig's up because they've lost power. So they poison us on many levels. Boron, an irritant to skin and mucous membranes. Since November, my animals, myself, and my neighbors are getting strange skin rashes again. But PGB says everything's fine. Hydrogen sulfide causes fatigue, dizziness, nausea, eye and inhalation irritation, loss of smell. It's fatal at 700 parts per million. PGV's wells are 750 to 11,000 parts per million. 1,100 parts per million. The wells behind our house, they're deadly. Now, again, hydrogen sulfide is heavier than air. It rolls downhill. Also, it will pool places and get a higher concentration. Lead interferes with many body processes. It's toxins to organs and tissues, your hearts, your bones, your intestines, your kidneys, reproductive system, nervous systems. Interferes with the nervous system, particularly toxic to children, causing potentially permanent learning and behavioral disorders, abdominal pain, confusion, headache, anemia, irritability, in severe cases, seizure, coma, and death. This is a list of some of the things that are in geothermal steam, and it's telling you what each one does individually. We don't know what these do combined. So geothermal, safe and clean? I don't think so. Mercury, it can be inhaled and also absorbed in the skin. Elimination is slow. Long-term effects that may be only partially reversible. Children are especially susceptible. May cause growth deformities, anemia, hypothyroidism, and increased excitability. Prolonged exposure may cause neurological disorders. Hydrogen sulfide also causes neurological disorders. If there's any teachers from Pahoa school and local schools, I'm sure they see some of these symptoms in the school children. Radon 222. At present, there's no known level of exposure to radiation that will not cause biological damage. Adverse health effects include cancer. Sulfur dioxide increases chronic bronchitis in adults, increased lower respiratory disease in children, and increased airway resistance. In our home on a daily basis, we have an air monitor, a PGV air monitor at the edge of our property up on the hill. It won't pick up anything. You know, it doesn't pick up, say, it's picking up any H2S. But most of the days, it's hard for me to even get up and walk to the bathroom because of all this stuff that's in my lungs. We recently found out that hydrogen sulfide consumes oxygen, which now I understand why there's days I feel like I'm not getting any air. Hydrogen sulfide, it actually consumes oxygen. So we can live without water maybe half a day. We can't live without oxygen for very long. Suspended particulate matter. Larger particles trap in the upper respiratory system and are cleared in a few minutes. And smaller particles remain in the body for months and years. Every morning we're spitting up crap every morning. And if you imagine, this is what we're inhaling on a daily basis. To put it in a nutshell, these particulates can include silica, which is glass. So we're inhaling minute particles of glass that also have radioactive isotopes attached to it. And then these other cancer-causing components. Not a good mix. Hydrogen sulfide health effects. At lower levels, hydrogen sulfide stresses the respiratory system, decreases oxygen uptake, it affects the head, especially the eyes. I'm super light sensitive now, and I'm sure other people in our neighborhood.